says. So it's preparing the live stream. It's probably already visible. I just can't see it yet. No, now it is. Now it shows up. So let's see if anybody watches here. Where were we? Let me go back to Zoom. Wow, nice. 33 people watching. Very good. All right. Well, did you all get to watch the video today? Do you have any questions about the video? So we showed you some examples of good top lines, not so good top lines, horses with good muscling, not so good muscling, but also with good conformation and not so good conformation. And there is a clear correlation, right, between conformation and top line muscling, because a horse with good conformation has a much easier time balancing himself with or without the rider. And when they can balance themselves, they can access the right muscles easily, right? And if you have a horse that doesn't have as good conformation, then they find it more difficult to balance themselves and to access the right muscles. So they typically don't develop the top line muscles as well or as fast, or sometimes not at all. And yeah, it's always interesting to observe all these correlations, right? Oh, Karen Jones says my English is superb. Thank you. She says I was just on the end of the YouTube live stream. I think it was in German. Yeah, we just did the same thing in German for the last 2 hours. So now switching over to English. Sharon Francis, hello from Scotland. It's very dark here. Yeah, it's very dark here too now. So winter is coming. And Gina says hi from Ocala, Florida. And Karen Jones says the evaluation video was very informative. Oh, good. I'm glad. Glad it helped, right? Yeah. Oh, Liz Holt says it was really useful to have it explained so clearly. Oh, good. I'm glad. Yeah. Very good. Let me look on YouTube. But there's nobody watching. I know six people are watching. Good. So I'm back to Zoom. So yeah, any more questions? Hey, Christina from Lübeck. Oh, Heather Jones says, hello from England. My first time experiencing your courses. Very happy. Oh, good. I'm glad you are enjoying it. Yeah. And Linda says, hi from Melton Mowbray, England. Well, very good. And Galina from New Jersey. Let's see here, Q&A, it says. Sharon says, I was playing around with a double lunging tonight, and on the right rein, Efren had quite a good tempo and rhythm, etc. On the left rein, however, he kept lowering his head and twisting his paw. Initially, I had him on a 10 to 15 meter circle, so I increased it to about 20 meters. However, he still did the same thing. Am I correct in saying this is something to do with his inside hind leg? And if so, how can I improve his way of going on that side? Yeah, it probably is something to do with the inside hind. It's probably a crookedness issue. Horses sometimes like to lower the head until it's on the ground, because that takes weight off of the inside hind leg, especially on the circle. And twisting the pole is usually also a crookedness thing. Then one of the hind legs is moving away from, sideways alongside the body. Oh, so left rein is this hollow side, and on the left rein, exactly. Yeah, that's very common on the left. Yeah, then he doesn't want to put any weight on the inside hind, and it could also be that he's pushing over the outside shoulder. That I wouldn't be surprised, like as he's twisting the head and lowering the neck, that he's also drifting through the outside shoulder and trying to drag you a little with him or make the circle bigger. That's something they often do, because they don't really want to put any weight on that inside hind leg. A couple of things you can do. Transitions are often a good remedy for that. We have a horse here that does similar things at the double lunge line, and with him, it helps to do a down transition from the trot to the walk and almost immediately back up. And then this horse that we have here will elevate the head and neck a little in the down transition. You can really see how he's using his hind legs to do the down transition. I'll have to turn on the recording. So yeah. So anyway, yeah. So when just to repeat this, so if the horse lowers the neck and twists the pole on the hollow side at the double lunge line, yeah, he's trying to unload the inside hind, or he's trying to protect the inside hind leg. And you can try doing transitions when you're in the trot and he does it, go back down to the walk and almost immediately back up to the trot. So that changes the balance. You can also try to do squares or rectangles rather than circles. So you can go straight on the long side a little bit and then turn 90 degrees and then straight a little bit and turn 90 degrees and straight, so that you get better control over the outside shoulder. If it's really bad, the drifting through the outside shoulder, you could use the inside lunge line, like run it through the inside snaffle ring underneath the head and neck and attach it to one of the rings on the outside of the surcingle. So whatever you do with the outside, with the inside rein, with the inside lunge line, always has a turning effect on the outside shoulder. So as a correction, you could do that, for example. You can also switch back and forth between a little bit of lunging or double lunging, and then stop the horse, go up to him, do a little work in hand where you're asking the inside hind leg to cross. You know, it's like shoulder in on the circle, essentially, just to gather up that inside hind and to bring the outside shoulder in front of it a little bit, and then back to lunging, you know, and then he'll probably be better at the lunge line, and then you can interrupt again when you feel like it falls apart, stop him, go up to him, sidestep a little, and so on. So that's another option that you can try. You know, when he does that, yeah, try to, you know, release the inside rein sometimes and maybe see if you can give a turning aid with the outside rein if you have the two lunge lines attached normally. So then you can try to turn a little with the outside rein, and then you may have to alternate sometimes, release the inside rein and try to give a turning aid with the outside rein. And then you can try to use the inside rein to flex the inside hind leg, you know, when it's on the ground. So I have to do different things, so to speak, at different times, like release a little on the inside, turn a little with the outside rein, half hold with the inside rein when the inside hind is on the ground, release again, you know, and so you may have to drive a little in between so the inside hind leg comes under the body more. So you can play around with these things, and then often you can improve the posture, yeah, add the down, up and down transitions. Yeah. If all else fails, the work in hand usually is useful. Like if you feel you can't get to him enough with the two lunge lines, then, you know, the work in hand is often a little bit more effective, right? Because you're closer, and then you can touch him with the whip and make the inside hind leg cross over a little bit. So mixing the techniques can be really good. Another thing you could try, depending on how you rig up the inside lunge line, is that you, like if you have the inside lunge line just attached directly to the inside snaffle ring, you could go behind the horse sometimes and basically long rein the horse on a circle and then ask the inside hind to cross over. So you straighten the horse, the outside rein frames half holds the inside rein, and the whip can drive the inside hind under the body. Then go more to the middle of the circle, let the horse go around you and see what he moves like, and then he's probably going to be better. And then, yeah, you can, with some setups of the lunge lines, you can change direction, and then you could go the other way, let the other inside hind leg cross over. Otherwise, you can just go back and forth between engaging the inside hind and then letting the horse go around you on a circle on the same rein, and then eventually change direction. You may have to change the rigging of the two lunge lines, and then you could do the same in the other direction. Ask the croup to yield out. You could also ask the croup to yield to the inside, right? If you can run the outside rein a little around the outside hind, then you could be in the middle of the circle, horse goes around you. You can counterbend with the outside rein, bring the haunches a little towards you, and then release the outside rein, drive the horse a little into the release, and then often they bend better and become rounder more. Or you go behind the horse, long rein a little bit on the circle, and ask the croup to yield a little to the inside and then go back out. So double lunging and long reining can be combined in a way that's helpful, right? And double lunging and work in hand can be combined. And long reining and work in hand can be combined too. So you go back and forth between the two. That's often a good strategy. Oh yeah. And Sharon says that's exactly what he does when riding. She says, I did some trot walk transitions that helped a little. I've joined the course, so I'll post a video of it. Oh, good. Yeah, let us know what you do, and try playing with the techniques. I mean, in the Topline Makeover course, we'll explain all these techniques, and we'll probably show the things I was talking about, because that's the kind of stuff I do with the horses. And when you have a horse with a stray hind leg that always wanders off to one side, then the long reining or the work in hand are great to get that hind leg back under the body, and transitions alone may not be enough, especially if it's a crookedness issue where the one hind leg really wanders off to one side. There you may have to add sidestepping in either long reining or work in hand. So Sharon says, thanks for the recommendations. That's great. We'll try that tomorrow. Let us know how it goes. And Sharon says, I had the lunge line set up how you were using it on the video demo available on the platform. Don't know if in the video I had it directly attached to the inside snaffle ring, or if I had run it through the inside snaffle ring and back to the inside of the surcingle. That would be more of a bending effect, right? So you can attach the inside rein in a number of different ways, and so it acts a little differently depending on how you attach it. So you can attach it more as a bending rein or as a turning rein. You can also just have it in neutral, so to speak. You can attach it so it gives the horse a little elevation, and so it comes off the forehand. You can attach it in such a way that it is more conducive to stretching, depending on what the horse needs, right? Oh, Sharon says, tonight was my first time double lunging, so really looking forward to learning more, and especially the long reining too. So grateful to be doing this course and learning more tools and ways to work with my horse. The double lunge line was intimidating for me for a long time, and my teachers actually didn't do it really. I just taught myself over the years. Eventually I broke down, so to speak, and said, well, I'll have to learn this now. I'll just try and figure it out, right? Initially I thought, I need 3 hands to do this. One for each lunge line, and then for the whip too. And but it gets better. Initially it's a little cumbersome sometimes with all the loops that you have, and then a big lunge whip and stuff, but with practice it gets better. That'll be great. And we explain how to do it in the course, so you don't spend as much time as I did trying to figure it out yourself. Oh yeah, okay. Sharon says directly attached to the inside rein, not via the surcingle. Yeah, that's actually the way I'm doing it mostly now. I've tried all kinds of things, but just clipping the inside lunge line to the inside snaffle is what I do most of the time. And if the horse falls on the inside shoulder and counterbends, for example, then the bending rein setup is useful, where you run the inside lunge line through the snaffle ring and then back to the inside of the surcingle. And if the horse drifts a lot through the outside shoulder and maybe overbends the neck, then you can do the setup that I had explained earlier, through the inside rein, through the inside snaffle ring, underneath the neck to the outside of the surcingle. Then you frame the outside shoulder. Let's see. Hold on a second, lots of more comments here. Hannah Engström said, no, sorry, did not have the time to see the videos, but I agree about the top line. The top line shows if the horse is happy, but it's always interesting to see how to improve it. Yeah. Karen Jones wants to know if double lunging is the same as long reining. It's not the same. It's but you can go back and forth from one to the other. In double lunging, you stand in the middle of the circle. The horse goes in a circle around you, but you have two lunge lines, right? And you can set them up or attach them in different ways. And you can, walk, trot, canter, essentially, but you can't do a whole lot of movements when you're next to the horse. And of course, you can go down the long side and then back to a circle, and but you always have a certain distance sideways from the horse. You're always on the horse's side in that sense, right? And then you have a certain distance. In long reining, you're behind the horse or next to one of the hind legs. And there you can come so close that you're actually touching the horse. So then you have shorter lines and a shorter whip, and at the long rein you can do all the movements with the horse: walk, trot, canter, piaffe, passage, flying changes, zigzag half passes, you name it. You basically whatever you can do under saddle, you can do at the long rein too. And the classical long reining is really a more advanced collecting type of work. But here for building the top line, you can do a sort of a basic version of long reining where you just do simple walk and trot and circle whole school and maybe a little yielding of one hind leg or the other, and then you can go back and forth between that and double lunging. So, because at the long rein, of course, when you're right next to the horse or behind the horse, you probably don't want to run that fast, right? But if the horse needs a bigger trot and bigger canter, if it's a bigger horse, then it's a little bit easier for the rider if you double lunge, if you're on the side and the horse just goes around you. But then you can always get behind the horse for a short period of time, gather up one hind leg or the other, and then go back to double lunging. That's something I've done with some of the horses here, and that worked really well for them. And Hannah Engström says working from the ground is great. Yeah, you can do a lot of things. Right? It's a great supplement to the riding. Then Marcia says, great video. Hello from Ottawa. Helpful in understanding what I need to work on to get his hind legs and reach and flex more. Good. You're very good. So Katie Magachi says, I was doing work in hand earlier today and found it really difficult to keep a solid contact with my outside rein. I've only done it twice and I'm 5'4", working with a 17 hand horse. Yeah. Do you have any tricks that may help me keep a good outside rein contact while doing work in hand? Yeah, if the horse is tall and you're not so tall, that can be difficult at a certain height discrepancy, right? Then it becomes a little impractical even maybe. Although with 5'4" and 17 hand horse, it's should be doable if the horse is not too pushy, if he's not rude. You have to experiment a little bit with where you stand or walk next to the horse, whether you're closer to the head or closer to the shoulder and or in the middle, and how you're holding the outside rein. I would always try to hold the reins in such a way that I don't have to extend my arms too far. So the closer your elbows can be to the body, the more connected you are between your seat, quote unquote, right, and your arms. The more you have to stretch your arms away from the body, the less influence you have and the more precarious your situation becomes. Because if the horse then takes a leap, then he'll just pull you, and then you lose balance. Whereas if you have your elbows close to the body, then you can stop the horse even if he's pretty pushy, right? Because then you can use the ground and let the horse push through your body into the ground, and the ground stops the horse, whereas if your arms or elbows are far away from the body, then you're not anchored very well, you're not grounded very well, right? Then you tend to go flying if anything happens. So in other words, don't hold the outside rein too high. You know, find a place somewhere, maybe on the horse's shoulder blade or so, where it's comfortable and where you feel like you can still apply a good half hold with the outside rein. If the horse is very forward and can be pushy, then yeah, you can be even in front, almost in front of the horse, like next to the head, facing backwards, and then you can anchor the inside rein against your body and then use the ground to stop the horse. If you're sort of between head and shoulders, then you can half hold, have the outside hand on the shoulder blade, and then, you know, at a comfortable height, and then you half hold when whatever leg that you're trying to talk to is on the ground. And that can become pretty effective too, you know, to stop the horse, to half hold. Yeah, so if the horse's neck is very long, then it becomes difficult too. Then the spread of your arms may be pretty wide. Yeah, play a little bit with whether you want to be closer to the shoulder, closer to the head. When you're closer to the head, you'll probably be walking backwards. When you're closer to the shoulder, you may be either walking sideways and crossing over, or walking forward. You know, keep your pelvis kind of facing forward and turn your shoulders a little towards the horse, depending on how fast you have to go. If you walk backwards, you're not as fast as when you're walking forwards, right? So it always depends a little bit. If you have a horse that doesn't go forward enough, that hesitates, then it's usually better to be next to the shoulder, face forward, and then you can activate the horse and go with him better when he is moving, you know. So yeah. But yeah, I always experiment a little bit too with my position and location next to the horse and so on. Francis Zeisemel says, is there a special technique when double lunging to keep him out more, as he tends to make circles smaller on hollow side? That's interesting. Usually they come in on the stiffer side and they drift out on the hollow side. But yeah, if the horse comes in, you can swing the lash of the lunge whip at the shoulder, towards the shoulder, basically parallel to the inside lunge line. You can swing the whip. You can also swing it more towards the head. I mean, you don't touch him, of course, but you can swing it. And if he sees that movement of the whip and the lash of the whip towards him, then they often look a little bit and then they enlarge a little bit. You can move in closer to him and then touch him on the shoulder blade with the lash of the whip. That sometimes helps. Sometimes you have to do a combination of sending the shoulder out and then driving the hind legs forward, you know, because sometimes they come in because the inside hind isn't engaging enough, and if the inside hind steps short, the horse falls on the inside shoulder. When he falls on the inside shoulder, he drifts in and so on. So sometimes, you know, you have to look at whether he's active enough or whether he's dragging his feet a little bit. So, you know, and then that dictates a little bit whether you need to drive him forward a little bit too or not. Another thing you can try is the alternating between double lunging and work in hand. So when the horse falls in, you could go up to him and then in hand enlarge, or maybe not so much the shoulder in type movement, because there he could still lean on the inside shoulder and just swing the haunches out, but the enlarging where you bring the weight of the inside shoulder up and out towards the outside pair of legs, that can help. You could also go behind the horse, long rein basically, on a circle and ask the inside hind to come out. Then you can use the inside rein, a little bit like an inside leg, and you can use the whip on the inside to send the inside hind leg forward and out. So these are all options you can try out. Yeah, then Therese Beswick says, my horse has developed a dip in front of his withers in the last couple of years. He's an older horse, 25 now. Is this something he will always have now, or is there anything I can do? I'm still riding him. Yeah, when they're no longer really lifting the withers enough, or when they're letting the base of the base of the neck sag, then sometimes you start seeing this dip in front of the withers. So you can see if you can get him to lift the withers a little bit more when you're riding, or do some work in hand that addresses that, so that he goes more uphill, lifts the withers more. Maybe he needs a little bit more energy too, so that there is enough power from behind lifting the withers up. At 25, maybe he is thinking of slowing down a little bit. I don't know. That's a possibility that he needs a little bit more power, and then help him to balance himself uphill and lift the withers and so on, and then it may disappear again, the dip in front of the withers. Oh, Hannah Engström wants to know the video from the first day. I think in the Facebook group, Shanna has put up a link to the videos, or otherwise you must have gotten an email with
what?
Links.
I'm sorry, what?
Hannah Engström wants to know where she can watch the video from day one.
I posted them
in the group.
Where is she right now?
Here in Zoom.
In the Facebook group?
So in the Facebook group, Shanna posted links.
Their emails went out.
And emails.
Two
so you
emails
should.
went out today with all the links.
Okay, yeah. So yeah,
It's also posted in the Facebook group.
Yeah.
If they click on the announcements,
exactly. Okay, so if you click announcements in the Facebook group, you should see the links to the videos from yesterday and today, and in your email inbox there should be an email with the links to.
Look in your spam.
Or maybe it's in spam or promotions, advertising folder. Yeah. Oh, Francis says I also have problems with strength now in my left hand to keep all the lines and whip in sync. Yeah, that is a lot sometimes, especially if your hands are not very large. Then having the whip and the lunge lines in one hand, that can be a little bit much. Karen Jones says, "Thank you. I do both, but didn't know they were called something different." Yeah, in the European classical tradition, they have different names. In Western might be different. There's ground driving too, which is sort of a version of long reining, but you have a longer distance, and typically you don't do a lot of movements, and it's more single track and walk and trot and so on. Yeah. But it's a good way to distinguish it, in conversations, the double lunging and long reining. So, you're talking about different techniques that do different things in a way. Julie says, looking forward to hearing more about studying the top line and knowing what you need to do to develop the horse. Leslie Wolf said, double lunging has reminded me my horse has has hind legs. So yeah, exactly. With double lunging, you can. Yeah, long reining too. When work in hand, you can teach the horse. Yeah, or remind the horse that he has hind legs. Sometimes they like to forget and leave them behind. And so. And Sharon France says, is it fair to say that a small thin line of white foam along the lines of the lips means that the horse is working correctly? For example, hind legs are stepping under, back is lifting, the tempo and rhythm are correct. I sometimes have it on both sides. However, last night I noticed I had achieved that on the right side, not on the left rein. Interestingly, my friend has a Lusitano stallion, and although an experienced rider from Germany, she never seems to achieve a nice foamy mouth. Oh, interesting. Yeah, generally, when the horse is in balance and relaxed and so on, chewing on the bit, then they develop a little bit of foam. If it's only on one side, then it's a crookedness symptom in a way. Then the one side of the mouth may have been a little inactive, or maybe bitten down a little on the bit, and the other side was more active. Or it could be that the one side where there's no foam never quite approached the bit. That could be too, that it never, it always stayed a little behind the bit and then stayed dry. And but yeah, when the horse approaches the bit, then they typically start chewing a little bit on the mouth, and then you're on the bit, and then you get some foam. Then Francis says he tends to rush more on this side. I'm a bit confused on this now as he keeps a better rhythm on the other side. Stiff versus hollow, question mark. Yeah, so on the side where the horses fall on the inside shoulder and come in, they tend to get faster too, because in a sense they come in because they're losing balance, they're falling on the inside shoulder, then they often speed up. But of course, a smaller circle is harder to do than a bigger circle. So after speeding up and coming in, there's usually a point on the circle where the horse starts to get carried out by the centrifugal force, right? And then they're going in sort of an ellipsis around you, right? They speed up and come in on one side, and then they go out on the opposite side. And as they go out, they usually slow down and bleed off some speed, right? And then if it's really extreme, they can even hit the outside rein and then stop, when they've gone out far enough, and then start going again, speed up, come in, get drifted, get carried out, slow down, and so on. So then you have to try and smooth that over so the circle becomes round or the tempo becomes more consistent. We had in the past we had horses like that. They did that pretty extremely, but yeah, the rounder the circle gets, the more steadier the tempo will become, right? And the calmer and steadier the tempo is, the easier it is to make the circle round, and then the horse starts to relax, and release the pole too, as he goes in a steady tempo around a round circle, right? Then improves his balance, his straightness, and so on. Yeah. Interesting. So let me check on YouTube if anybody's there. Oh. No questions, but people watching. Yeah, so then we had, let me see here on the Q&As, Carol Taylor Lindo says, my horse prefers to go on his forehand, dragging his hind legs, even though there's no conformational reason. Would I double lunge with the reins through the high surf single points to help him balance? How do I develop a new pattern habit of moving? When a horse goes too low with the head and neck in the double lunge line, you can try and run the lunge lines through the higher rings and see if that helps. It gives the horse a little bit elevation. But you may also have to do other things in addition, right? Like the transitions, maybe quicker succession of transitions, maybe the work in hand to engage a hind leg, maybe or a long reining to engage a hind leg, so that you can activate the hind legs better and bring them under the body better. But if they carry the head and neck too low, I often attach the lunge lines a little higher. If I want them to stretch forward downward more, I would attach them lower. Always depends on what you need. You can also, if the horse is too low with his head and neck, you could attach a cavesson over the lunge, over the snaffle, and then double lunge with the cavesson, because the rings of the cavesson are higher on the horse's face than the bit, and that usually gives a little bit more elevation, actually, which is good in the case of a horse that roots and drags his nose on the ground. But it can make other horses invert, right? If you have a horse that tends to carry himself a little too high, then the cavesson attachment of the double lunge line may be counterproductive because they invert, Yeah, so Tanya Johnston then has a question. She said, my young off-the-track thoroughbred is hollow left, stiff right, I think. Makes sense, the thoroughbreds in the US, they're usually hollow left because they race going left, right? She said, on the right rein, he tends to have his head to the outside and drift to the left. Interesting. To the outside and drift to the left. Usually you would expect him to look to the outside in the stiffer direction, but fall in. And she says, I was in a clinic and the instructor kept telling me to flex him and direct him using the right rein. Is it ever okay to use the inside rein to pull a horse onto the correct track? It's usually not effective to pull. Pushing is more effective, like pushing with the outside rein. But usually if the head goes in one direction, right, the shoulder wants to go in the opposite direction. So if the horse is flexing to the outside, they usually don't drift through the outside shoulder. Usually they drift through the inside because the head and the shoulder kind of counterbalance each other a little bit. So to the right, he flexes to the outside, but he drifts out like this. Yeah, if the actually, let me see. So were you riding him there? I'm sort of in that clinic. Did I miss something? Let me see again. Yeah, did you ride him in the clinic or lunge? Because when you're on him and he drifts to, I mean, if he falls in on the inside shoulder, I mean, maybe left and right was just mixed up there. So if the horse looks to the outside, falls in, then I would do a stirrup stepping on the outside, enlarging the circle. So basically transfer the weight from the inside shoulder onto the outside pair of legs. And then the head and neck position will fix itself. Then the horse will start bending to the inside. Yeah, just pulling the neck to the inside is counterproductive, but you have to shift the weight first because the counter bend is, the result of the horse overloading the inside front leg. If the horse is drifting to the outside, then actually little counter bend would be useful to frame the outside shoulder, and then you could ask the croup to yield a little to the inside first to gather that outside hind leg up underneath you, and then you can sit on it, rotate the horse a little. So now the croup is back out on the first track, and then you could slightly change the bend to the inside once you have a good connection to the outside hind leg. So that would be a possibility. And then, so Tanya says, on the single lunge, he flies to the left, then almost turns in a triangle to the right. Yeah, it's crookedness, right? Yeah. Yeah, if the shoulders want to drift out and the horse wants to kind of leave the line of travel to the outside, then you can, counter bend, ask the outside hind leg to cross over and back to the circle. And then you might actually add a volte to the inside, right? So you ask the horse to move the croup in with a flexion to the outside, then bring the croup back out, flex to the inside, ride a volte, and then you just alternate that. You can do this whole school, or you can do this on a circle. So yeah, so that under saddle, that should probably help. And Belly Beer says my horse needs to fill in front of the croup slightly. Which exercises do you recommend for this? Apologies if I missed the answer to a question. So fill in front of the croup. So that's the lumbar spine area, basically. The lumbar muscles around the lumbar spine, they will grow when the horse is flexing the hind legs under the body. So the pelvis tilts a little bit, right, with the pubic bone going sort of forward and up a little bit, and the tailbone going back and down a little bit. Then the lumbar spine gets lifted up, right? So you may have to do lots of engaging the hind leg, then sitting on the hind leg through your seat bone, or half halting, stirrup stepping, doing down transitions into the hind legs, etc. So yeah. And let's see what else. Cheryl had a question connected to a picture. We'll look at that in a minute. Good. Sharon Gallagher says, hi, better late than never. Great questions. Yeah, always. They're always great questions. And Leslie Wolf says, my horse stays straighter through the circle if I lay out a hexagon so I can turn the shoulder at every marker. Yeah, that's one technique that works pretty well. Yeah, make a polygon, you know. And then think of riding a straight line for a few strides, turning the shoulders, make a straight line, turn the shoulders, and then the more points or corners your polygon has, the rounder it appears, right? But you can still on a circle think of moving the shoulder one step to the inside and then continuing, and then move the shoulder one step to the inside. Yeah. So, hey. And Terry Miller on YouTube says, what's the best exercise to build a horse back up that has regained his weight after an illness but has lost all muscle on the top line? Yeah, I would start with lunging and double lunging. Yeah, transitions, maybe little sidestepping in hand to bring the hind legs under the body, and then, yeah, with a little time, the top line muscles will grow. So then here, Cheryl says, a post that pictures on Facebook today of my 13-year-old Hanoverian mare. One was of her standing and one in movement. Her top line looks much better in movement, but I'm just leading her. Does it make sense that she would naturally stand in poor posture but move in a better posture? Yeah, it can happen. Let me see if I can find that. You can have to probably search for it. Huh. Yeah, let me see. There was a post just about long reins. Let me see. You post that today. Okay, let me see if I can find that post. So let me see. Unless it was in these comments under Shanna's post, because the search engine apparently doesn't see those. So let me check there first, maybe. Just go real quick to see if it's in here. So I'm scrolling here through that post to see if I can find these pictures real quick. Doesn't look like they're in here yet. Ah. Not yet. Not yet. Here it is, Cheryl Fegans. Okay. So, a 13-year-old Hanoverian mare, one foal at 4. She says saggy top line standing. That doesn't look that saggy to me, actually. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't look that bad, actually, here. You know, the transitions from the back through the lumbar spine to the croup is not bad. I mean, the top of the back line rises a little bit, but not dramatically, right? It's a little bit of a dip in front of the withers. It's hard to see the exact shape of the neck because the horse is turning her head and looking here in this direction. Hind legs look like they have good angles, and yeah, it doesn't look bad at all. Let me look at the movement in motion. yeah, in motion could well be that the horses tend to look a little better, carry themselves better. One thing probably what is making the biggest difference is that the head and neck are fairly relaxed here. In the other picture, the horse is looking. So here the neck is, yeah, the pole is lifted, right? So the neck looks straight from the side. I mean, looking from above, there's a bend in the neck to the left a little bit, right? But looking from the side here, the spine is fairly straight, and that yeah, creates potentially a little bit of a tightness in the back, right, or downward pressure on the back. Whereas here, you know, the neck is straight, but looking from the side, it has a roundness to it because the horse is relaxed and it's not looking actively at something, right? Looks like in the picture here, like the hind leg wasn't stepping under especially far, you know, so you could work on engaging the hind legs more with either work in hand or under saddle if you ride the horse. That can be beneficial to just get the hind legs more under the body and get them more engaged, a little bit more flexed. But so let me go back to the top of this. Okay, let me just double check on YouTube. There was nothing new here. But let me quickly get to a couple of questions before we look at the next horse. Katie says, I've only just learned how to lunge, and the last few times I've tried to do this, my horse only walks with no momentum and refuses to go into trot. He isn't bothered about the whip. He will happily trot around the arena if I run at his side. Have you any ideas how I can get him to work more? I'm sure he knows I'm inexperienced and is taking advantage. She says, sorry, it's such a basic question. It's not basic at all. It's a pretty common problem. A couple of things you can do. I would start out with checking my own posture and my own energy. If you don't have enough energy yourself, and if your core muscles are soft and relaxed, and sometimes the horses, you know, take that as a clue that they can do the same, so to speak, right? And they move with very little energy. They don't engage their core muscles, and then they're sort of dragging their feet a little bit. If you raise your own energy level or engage your core muscles more, ground yourself, then you can create an energy circuit from the whip through the horse's hind leg spine to the lunge line, from the lunge line back to you, and then through your inside leg into the ground. That can work. Then sometimes that's enough just to raise your own energy level, and then you can of course lift the whip and, you know, swing the whip a little back to front at the horse. Some horses don't really care much about that, and then you could close the distance between you and the horse, so you walk on a little circle with the horse, and then you can teach the horse that he needs to be a little bit more active. So I would lift the whip a little bit, you know, and then he should respond by going forward more. And if he doesn't do that, then you can swing the whip a little back to front and from the bottom up towards the hind leg to see if he moves. If that doesn't move, you can let the lunge whip, the whip of the lunge, the lash of the lunge whip touch the hind leg, just in a gentle swing from back to front, so that lash of the whip connects very gently with the inside hind. If that's not enough, you can swoosh the lunge whip through the air. So if you move the lash of the whip up and then bring it quickly down, it makes a swishing noise, and that can generate some energy. But just be careful if there are other horses in the arena so you don't spook them, right? So it's something I would do if I'm alone. And if all of that doesn't really work, then you can nip at the horse with the lash of the whip. Right? So you move the lunge whip forward in a slow, big movement, and then move it back very quickly. And then the lash accelerates as you move the handle of the whip back. The lash accelerates forward, because as you move the whip forward, the stick of the whip forward, the lash kind of trails behind, right? And then if you move the stick very quickly back, you get the whiplash effect, and the lash goes forward very quickly, and then when it connects, then it has a bit of a bitey quality. And then most horses, wake up when you do that once or twice, and they try to avoid that. Some horses know exactly how far away you are. They know when they're safe and when they're not safe. So you can close in, nip at the horse, fall back a little bit, see if he continues on his own. And with some horses, you always have to stay more or less in range, unfortunately, because they're too clever, so to speak. They know when you can or cannot reach them. And then if you can't reach them, then they just, thumb their nose at you a little bit. So another option is to lunge the horse with two people. So you have one person holding the end of the lunge line in the middle of the circle, and then the other person carrying a whip, and that person can then get a little bit more behind the horse, more next to the horse, closer, farther away, and can drive more effectively. Yeah. Good. So let me look. We had Cheryl's post, exactly. So Cheryl said, okay, makes sense that her head is lifted. Thank you so much. Yeah, the posture makes a big difference. That's an interesting thing. Like here in this challenge and the last challenge, it was interesting to see the different pictures of the same horse. Sometimes if you take the picture from a different angle, the conformation can suddenly look very different. Or if the horse's posture is different, the back will look very different. Like if you take a picture of your horse grazing, the back usually looks pretty good, right? Because there is no downward pressure from the head and neck onto the back. But if anything, the low head and neck pulls the back up a little bit. And when the horse is very alert because he just heard or saw something, and the head is straight up in the air and neck muscles tight, then there is a downward pressure on the back, and then the horses will look like the back is a little dropped, especially the ones that are a little susceptible to that, right? Yeah. All right, let me maybe look at some pictures, but yeah, good. Where were we? Here we were. So here is Ellie Anderson's horse. It's a thoroughbred. He's been out of work, but he's about to come back. She says he has had a niggle in his back end. So let me share that picture. I just want to read the comments. Sometimes you cannot hear you can read the comment. All right, it actually looks pretty good. Doesn't really look all that thoroughbredy in a way, right? It has pretty big withers like some thoroughbreds, but otherwise the transition from the lumbar spine to the croup looks pretty nice and round, and the croup overall looks rounder than in a lot of thoroughbreds, right? There's a little bit of a dip in front of the withers, but not dramatic. Thoroughbreds often have that the withers are very prominent, and the neck is not set on quite as high, to come out of the withers in a smooth line. The shape of the neck is okay. It could be a tiny bit longer here. So you have a bigger range of options for, you know, elevating and flexing the pole, elevating the neck and flexing the pole, because as the horse collects more, of course, they'll elevate the head and neck more, but then you also need a certain roundness so he stays on a bit and so on. But luckily he's fairly well defined here in the musculature, right? So you see the contours of the neck muscles, and there's enough space between the lower jaw and the neck muscles, so that's good. So it shouldn't be difficult to, you know, it should be fairly supple in the pole and not too hard to ride on the bit. Yeah, actually, all in all, looks pretty good. So let me continue there with that post, with the posts. Okay, here, Linda Carey, Freddie, my 16-year-old ex-racehorse, she says. Let me share. So another thoroughbred, in other words. 16, yeah. Yeah, actually also looks pretty nice. Big, powerful hindquarters, right? Also has this little bit of a dip in front of the withers. In some ways, actually similar to the chestnut almost, right? The chestnut maybe had a little bit rounder croup, and this one is a little more angular, but it's okay, right? Yeah, the lumbar spine looks pretty good. A little bit of a dip in front of the withers, but also same sort of neck, right? So medium length, set on medium high. Here when you compare the neck length to the length of the torso and the hindquarters, the neck almost looks a little bit shorter than it should be compared to the length of the spine and the croup, but probably doesn't cause a lot of problems in the training. So, but yeah, otherwise looks pretty nice. Yeah, I don't see any areas in the body that would look like they're going to be very difficult. Yeah. Let me go look at the next. Oops, no. Where were we here? I have to find find the next picture. They're here. Connemara Thoroughbred Cross, Julie Verity, 12-year-old mare, different breed. That's always the interesting thing. Looking at horses from different breeds with different body types. So Connemara Thoroughbred, yeah, it's a you see the Thoroughbred a little bit, right? If you compare it to the other two horses, right, it's just a little smaller, but transition here from the withers to the neck is sort of similar to the other horses. The shape of the neck is similar. The transition here from the loin to the croup is pretty good. More on the round side, maybe that may come from the Connemaras too. Yeah. All in all, conformation is pretty good. I don't know how well defined the muscles are here in the throat ledge area, just from this picture. If there's any tightness in here, you can do some lateral flexions on the ground to stretch the muscles on the outside of the bend, and then the muscles gradually change shape, and they you'll see the outlines, the contours of the muscles more and more, right? That's sort of maybe the most difficult part of the conformation, that the distance here from the mane down to the throat is fairly deep, right? And so the neck is not very long, so that sometimes can create issues of flexibility here in the pole. But yeah, with some flexions in hand on the ground, you can probably create more definition in the muscles, more mobility, and then that shouldn't be a problem anymore. So let me go find the next one. Minna Sarkinen, 17-year-old thoroughbred gelding. Lots of thoroughbreds today. She's been on a little break for 6 weeks or so, struggles with forward. It's interesting, a thoroughbred that struggles with forward, huh? So, but yeah, it's interesting when you look at the angles of the hind legs. The hind legs are fairly far underneath. That actually sometimes means that they don't push quite enough, but they tend to maybe flex the joints more. So I don't know if he always stands a little like that. And that could be, that conformation could have something to do with the fact that he doesn't want to go forward. He doesn't push that much, but he sits, flexes the hind legs maybe a little. And then there's not enough extension of the joints, not enough push from behind. That could be, yeah. But I see also the big wither is a little bit of a dip in front then, and yeah, the neck still has some curvature in it, which is nice, but it's also fairly deep here at this point, right behind the ears to the throat latch. And that, like I said, if that's very deep, it can make the paw a little inflexible sometimes. So you may have to do some flexions on the ground in hand. But yeah, transition from the back to the croup looks good and looks smooth. And yeah, croup looks pretty round. Very good. Let me look at the next one. Then Brianne Rose Jones, paint horse. Actually, let me share that. And yeah, actually looks pretty nice. This is a little slightly long in the lumbar spine, right? There's a little bit of a point in the transition from lumbar spine to the top of the croup. And but hind leg angles look okay. The croup looks round enough, and the neck has a pretty good shape. It's a little bit the same issue with the very deep paw. If you measure the distance here from the top of the neck behind the ears down to the throat latch, that's a fairly long distance. And the neck is not very long, not super short, but not very long. So then this can create some mobility issues. In other words, and lateral flexion could be challenging, and then longitudinal flexion can be challenging. And if there is tightness here in the throat latch area, the energy of the hind legs doesn't travel through so well, and that can then impact here the lumbar spine again, that the hind legs won't be able to step under and flex enough, and then they don't support the back enough. And so it's like a domino effect a little bit. And then when you create more suppleness here, maybe the hind legs can step under more, flex more. When they do that, they lift the lumbar spine, lift the back a little more. And then yeah, the horse will feel better, look rounder, and so on. Yeah, good. Yeah, nice horse all in all. Let me go back to that post. And here, Anna Chalet, so spelled in Cyrillic. Sorry, my Cyrillic isn't that great. But it's a trotter mare. Let me share that. So again, slightly different breed again. Yeah, so here's a horse with a bit of a longer neck, which is probably an advantage here. But yeah, wither's very prominent too. Yeah, transition from the lumbar spine to the croup. Not bad. The hind legs look like they tend to be a little bit out behind, and that's something that You see in trotters sometimes, because they're bred for, you know, harness racing usually. They're often, the hind legs are often conformation a little bit out behind, so they can push really hard, and then they can push themselves onto the forehand. So you would basically have to bring the hind legs under the body and flex them a lot. Remind the horse, you know, to not leave the hind legs behind, but pick them up early enough, put them under the body, sit on them. Yeah, so yeah, we saw a thoroughbred earlier that had the hind legs a little bit more under the body. It's almost a, you know, almost a little bit sickle hop, not quite, but you know, with the hind legs curved a little, flexed a little this way, and closer to the center of gravity, which makes them more prone to supporting the body mass by nature, but not pushing enough. So that's why that horse probably has a little lack of forward, you know, energy. This horse here is a little bit the opposite, right? Here the hind legs are more behind. So I would think that this one pushes and goes forward quite well, but may not carry enough. And then if they push a lot and they're not carrying enough, then it could be that either she gets heavy and leans on the reins, or she inverts. That's the other possibility. And a lot of trotters that I've seen had very taut muscles, so very high muscle tone, somewhat unelastic, you know, and with them creating suppleness and softness was always a big topic. You know, that's something you had to work on a lot. So let me. Oh, here a question here. Heather Jones says, "Are you on about carrot stretch when you say flex the pole from the ground to help?" No, the carrot stretch really flexes the base of the neck more because the whole neck bends around. These exercises for the pole, they're done in such a way that the base of the neck stays pretty straight, and you just move the top third of the neck. You know, the top really from, you know, skull to, I don't know, C3, no more, you know, C2, C3. Try to move just the top of the spine, top of the neck, a little sideways, like you're just trying to move the skull a little bit left and right. Because you want to stretch the muscles on the top. When you do the carrot stretches, the horse stretches the muscles that are more in the bottom half of the neck. Yeah, that targets a different area. So, let me see if I find more variety of other types of horses. Let's see here, Ruth McManus, that looks like a gypsy van or a tinker. Yeah, so very different body type, right? So here the shape of the neck is nice. Like there's a little bit of an arch in the neck. Length seems like it's sufficient. The back line is a little concave, right? But the croup is nice and round. Often the issue with these tinkers or gypsy vanners is that they often don't have a lot of natural energy or ambition, so to speak, often a little bit low muscle tone. So they tend to drag their feet a little bit, drop the back a little bit because they're not engaging the core muscles enough. So with those, you often have to create energy maybe through quick successions of transitions and combinations of little sidestepping, turning, changing direction, up and down transitions, like mixing those a lot, so the horses wake up and then move with more, you know, energy of their own. But I like how round the croup is, you know, so the transition from the lumbar spine to the croup actually flows pretty nicely. So yeah, if there is enough energy there, yeah, the horses should be fine to work. So if they're too, you know, sluggish, then maybe the hind legs stay on the ground too long, so they get kind of left behind a little bit, and then in that case, the lumbar spine would sag, you know, and the back would drop. But if you can get enough energy, if you can get the hind legs under the body, you flex them, then the back should be protected by that. Yeah. So let me look for more. So here, let me just look at the comments again on Zoom. Leslie Wolf said, my horse pushes onto the forehand, in trot on the left rein, loses balance, would putting him into counter shoulder in on right rein work. So is that under saddle or at the lunge line? So if the horse pushes onto the forehand under saddle, then it would be interesting to know, does he fall on the inside shoulder, outside shoulder? So depending on what the details are, you might do different things. Counter shouldering can be good in either direction. It puts more weight onto the hind leg that has the inside track, right? And it brings the hind leg that's on the outside track more under the body. So when you return to a single track, then the lateral bend should be improved and the horse should stretch the muscles on the outside more, and then it probably will lift the back and come on a bit more, etc. So yeah, inside shoulder, yeah, exactly. So falls on the inside shoulder on the left. So yeah, counter shoulder in on the right can help definitely. On the left, you could do an enlarging, for example. Enlarge a few strides, but then maybe ride a volte at the circle point, then enlarge a few strides and ride a volte at the next circle point. So on the left, you know, by enlarging, you bring the inside hind leg under the body, you shift the weight to the outside pair of legs, and then by turning onto a volte, you can use the body weight to flex the inside hind under the body mass. Because the left hind leg is probably going to be a little bit out behind and pretty extended. So it's good to bring it under the body and then sit on it to flex it. And Mary says, can you give details as to how you flex the pole on the ground? Please. We'll do that in the course probably. There'll be some in there. It's a little bit, it's difficult to do it in hand here. The different techniques you can use. The important thing to keep in mind and to watch out for is that you keep the base of the neck fairly straight, you know, but you try to create a lateral flexion and lateral stretch in the first third, in the upper third of the neck. Yeah. Kara says, my Hanoverian paint cross mare has a dimple on top of the croup that dips to the tail. I've been told that means she's heavy. I've also been told that she's getting more muscle and that's better. Not sure who's right. Any opinion? There are some breeds that tend to get that and others don't. So the quarter horse and paints and so on, they can get that. So if it's in the middle, right? So they bulk up their muscles left and right. So I would think it's probably more that she's muscling up rather than that she's fat. So, but I'd have to see it more, you know, to be able to tell more what it is. So let me go look at the group again. Let me. Let me see if I can find some interesting specimens, maybe that look a little different too. Here, Martina Steele Paris. That's interesting too. Is that check out the placement of the hind legs and see how this relates to the top line. How this is very interesting. Huh? Let me share this with you. So it's a 10-year-old jumper, but she doesn't say what breed. I mean, so, you know, the neck, the back, the croup all looks pretty good, but he does have a little bit funny angles in the hind legs, right? So the stifle joint has very open angles. The hocks, in a way, have pretty open angles too. So the hind legs are very far underneath. I'm surprised that he can jump like that, maybe because the hind leg joints are fairly stretched, but I don't know. I mean, the jumpers often like hind legs that are sort of vertical, but with fairly straight angles because they can really push. They have a sort of certain explosive energy. This one just stands a little far underneath. Yeah, it would be interesting to know how he is to ride, how much push he has naturally, or how comfortable he is to ride, how hard or how soft the gates are. That would be an interesting thing to find out. Other than that, if you kind of cover up the funny angles of the hind legs, the horse actually looks pretty nice. Everything else looks good on him. But yeah, that's very interesting. I wonder if he always stands like that, or if there's a medical reason. That could be an interesting thing to consult with a physiotherapist if there is something going on in his back or so that makes him stand like that and lift the lumbar spine and tilt the pelvis, because it's a slightly unnatural stance, right? So essentially, you know, I would investigate, is this the way the conformation of the horse works, or is he compensating for something in his posture? Or I don't know, the hamstrings maybe not strong enough, not developed enough, and maybe the psoas muscles tight, you know, something like that. Because overall he has really good conformation. That's why I'm a little surprised to see these funny hind leg angles. That's not that common. It could be that, I mean, as you know, if the hamstrings are slack in a way, or weak, and the psoas muscles are tight, you know, maybe something like that could be the result, right? Although I don't know, it would be interesting to see what a physiotherapist would have to say about that. That could be interesting, and it would be interesting to know, you know, how he is to ride, and if there is anything unusual about the way he behaves. So let me scroll down and find some others. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so here Gina Durfee says, here's my Oldenburg gelding, 13 years, would love your opinion. So more of the sport horse type. That's always interesting to look at too for reference, especially if you have a big variety of different breeds. I mean, this is a nicely built horse, of course. You know, he's very balanced in his conformation. So here's a neck that has a very nice length, is nicely set on with a natural curve, and you see there's a lot of space for the pole to flex up here. So this is really a neck that is fairly, you know, easy to shape or good to ride. You know, it won't create problems here. The back looks good, not too long, not too short. You know, smooth transition into the croup. Hind leg angles look fine, right? Croup looks fine. It's a very well balanced horse overall. So it's a horse that should find it fairly easy to go in balance under the rider. It should be a fun horse to ride. the way he looks. Yeah. Yeah. So, and you see the horse has good conformation, well balanced. So the top line muscles are already, developed nicely. And with a horse like that, it's easy to access the right muscles because he is well balanced, right? So, yeah, has a nice shape. And so let's go look at some more. Here's Swedish warm blood, diagnosed with kissing spines. That's also interesting to look at. So Rebecca Hall says, 12-year-old Swedish warm blood, diagnosed with kissing spines 1 year before I met her 2 years ago. So we're working on facilitating the transfer of movement through the spine and reducing that bulging under neck. Yeah, conformationally, not bad. I mean, a little croup high maybe here. So there's this concave, line of the back right behind the withers, and then the lumbar spine rises a little towards the croup. That's probably why the horse developed kissing spine somewhere along the line. The neck actually has a nice shape and nice length and nice attachment. And if you look at the flow of the top line, yeah, you see the little bit of a dip behind the withers, and then you see a little bit of an angle here in the transition from loin to croup. So these factors, they can make it a little challenging then to lift the back. And yeah, the hind legs are fairly straight, so you'd have to get them to step under more and flex more, so they lift the lumbar spine. So yeah, here in the picture, they're a tad far back, right? But not dramatic, So yeah, you should be able to fix the kissing spines, right? And to protect the back, it's important that the hind legs flex under the belly, right? They have to step under, they have to flex so that the pelvis can tuck and the lumbar spine can lift. But let's see here. Look at the next one. Oh, here's interesting. A cold-blooded trotter. I didn't know there was such a thing. I always thought that trotters were more like thoroughbred derivatives because they're bred for the racetrack, right? But interesting. I mean, its shape is actually pretty nice. So that's a breed I've never encountered before, so I have no idea really how they tick or how they are to train and to ride. Topline has a nice flow to it. The neck is a little short, but it luckily has a bit of a curve to it, a roundness to it. It's just could be a little longer, for how deep the neck is. And here at the top, from the mane behind the ears down to the throat, that's a fairly big distance, so that can create little issues there with the lateral flexibility and then the longitudinal flexibility in the poll. But I kind of like the croup. I like the way the back line goes into the croup line. Yeah, so that from the withers back, it all looks pretty nice. The only area that could be a little difficult, I think, is the throat latch pole area. And I don't know what the temperament is like on these horses, or how hot or how cold they are. If there is enough energy to work with, then you can work with the conformation the horse has, and then you'll be able to get the pole to be more supple. If the horse has very little energy, then it'll be difficult. But that's sort of with all of them, right? So let me go back. So, see here. Philippa Ingleby. She says she posted pictures in the group. Let me see if I can find that. Is it Haribo? Good. Here they are. So 14-year-old British warm blood show jumping lines that various physical issues, now seeking to build correct supportive muscle and top line. Let me share that. Lots of pictures there. Let me take a look. And let me just take a quick look at the group of the pictures. How interesting that looks. A little different than here. Huh? So you see the difference the angle makes. Oops, that's the last one. So yeah, when you look here, so there's a little bit of this dip in front of the withers, right? So the neck is not set on especially high, but I see that often happens with the really big prominent withers, that then there's a little bit dip in front. Seems like the spinous processes here are just especially long. And you see this little bit of depression here behind the, between this part of the lumbar spine and the pelvis, right? So the muscles are not quite filled out yet. So you don't see the top of the neck. The neck itself seems like it has a nice shape to it. Here you see that the weakness in the lumbar spine again. So that, if the hind legs flex a little bit more under the body, then this will fill in gradually. Here it looks a little different. Here it actually looks smoother. I don't know if that's a more recent picture or what. But here you see more of a depression here, above the shoulder blade. It looks like there is not a lot of muscle right here. Just looking here, the neck actually has a nice shape in itself. Nice little bit curvature, and it seems like there's enough space here around the pole for the horse to flex. Overall, he could use a little bit more muscling, but yeah, if he had lots of health issues and he probably wasn't trained consistently for some time. And I see how he's the muscles here alongside the back, they're not very developed, and then here in front of the withers, the trapezius is not so developed either. So that should happen with more training. Probably start with lunging and double lunging and so on, so that the horse starts lifting the back, swinging through the back. Little forward downward stretching at the lunge line would be good. Here you see it too. So he's using the under neck muscles here in the picture a little bit. There's a sense of the base of the neck dropping a little bit, and not him lifting the withers and lifting the base of the neck, but gravity pulls that down a little bit, and then the back muscles are not that developed. Here in this picture, you see the front half of the thoracic spine more, right? From the top of the shoulder blade is coming out a little bit, but the lumbar spine looks a little smoother, and could be the angle. Like here, you don't see anything, unusual really around the top of the shoulder blade or the front of the back, but you see the lumbar spine more. That's, you have a little bit of this dip. But I mean, the conformation is all in all not that bad. So with training, you should be able to yeah, build the muscles back up. And yeah, I would start with the lunging and double lunging too, you know, maybe some work in hand. It would be interesting to see how he moves and, you know, how much does he push, how well does he carry himself, and that would then determine what exactly you're going to do with the horse. Yeah. So let me go back to the Shauna's post. Takes a little while here. Interesting here. Then we go back to the group. Greatest Saxegard Carlson from Norway. She has an 11-year-old Norwegian warm blood. I don't think I've seen one of those either. But so this is interesting. So there are 2 pictures. Interesting, looks different, right? Interesting how the different postures and angles of the camera make the horse appear different, right? So here the neck is carried pretty high, and you see muscles, you know, coming out. So there's a little bit of tension here, and that creates a little bit of a pressure on the back. There's a little bit of a dip in front of the withers too, and it's interesting. It's like the ribs are bulging a little here or something. That's a little unusual here to see that, but it could also be the lighting. So here it looks very different, right? So the neck is more relaxed, more, you know, held more horizontally. Here the loin looks a little stronger, and the transition from the loin to the croup looks nice. Hind legs a little bit behind, far back. You know, they could be a little bit more under. Let me look at the previous picture. Yeah, here there is something that looks a little bit less sturdy, less stable around the hindquarters to me, and the lumbar spine. So they look a little bit more fragile somehow. Here in the other picture, they look stronger. The croup and loin look stronger. And the hind legs are in a different place, right? The left hind leg here comes more under, and the horse is standing with her weight on the right hind leg. So this I don't know. Looking at the picture here, it looks like the horse feels less balanced to me, like teetering a little bit. Here, the horse looks a lot more stable. Yeah. So it's interesting how, you know, the different postures of the horse, different angles from which you take the picture, can make the horses look very different, right? In some areas, a certain body part may look a little difficult or frail or weak or something, and in another picture it looks fine, looks like, you know, strong. So yeah, very, very interesting. Let me hunt for some more. So yeah, your creator had then asked, do you have any tips how to train her? Let me see. So let me read the whole text. She says, so the 11-year-old Norwegian warm blood mare Rosie. And she says she's very stiff in the connective tissue. Okay, the photo is before and after treatment. Yeah. Been struggling with this horse for 4 years now, but I'm not giving up on her. I hope to learn more how to train her. Right now I try to learn long reins and I walk her as I would try to drive her. So that's interesting. So let's look at that again. Huge top line problem. So it's interesting. It's good to know that there was a treatment there before and after. So it's probably the before treatment, right? Before the treatment picture. And that's the after treatment picture. So the horse looks a lot more relaxed. So let's look at the time, 1:23 p.m. Yeah, 12:37. Yeah, so that's before. So there, the muscles here are more contracted, right? And that's why everything looks a little less balanced. So it's interesting that she's tight. Would be interesting to know where exactly, or it would be interesting to know the history too, if there's any, I don't know, trauma or bad training history, injuries, etc., that made the horse get tense or contracted in the top line like that, or any health issues in the legs, in the sacroiliac, stuff like that, that could lead to, the contraction of the muscles. Yeah, here it looks a lot more relaxed, and yeah, to train, yeah, it would be interesting to know if the horse just has very tight muscles in general, so in that case, probably a lot of bending, sidestepping, figure eights, serpentines kind of exercises would help, where you have to move the horse back and forth a lot, bending right, bending left, and then you can combine that with little sidestepping. Turns on the forehand in motion and stuff like that are often very good. Like in hand, before you get on, you could do some turns on the forehand in motion, or some sidestepping on the circle where you let the inside hind leg cross over. Would be interesting also to know how well grounded or balanced the horse is, how good the body awareness is, because it could also be that this horse doesn't have a good connection from her feet to the ground, and that's why she tenses up, holds her breath, contracts the muscles, because she's always worrying about falling down. So it could be that there is an aspect of lack of connection from the feet to the ground. You can fix that with stirrup stepping and with down transitions, walk to halt, trot to halt into the forelegs, or trot to walk, transitions into the forelegs. Yeah, this little bulge here is curious, but if that's before the treatment and the horse has all kinds of muscle tension, could be that is one of those, is caused by a muscle tension somewhere. Yeah, so very, very interesting, right? So in the specific way, of how to train the horse, then depends a little bit on the answers to those questions, right, that I asked. Yeah, very interesting. And let's see what else we have. We've got 20 more minutes. I'd like to see if there are any more interesting different breeds that we haven't seen. Here's the post from Shannon. Let's see, here is Wendy Reeves with her 11-year-old Welsh Cob D. Yeah, the cobs are usually nice round horses too. So yeah, it's a nice horse, right? So the neck is nice and round, actually comes out of the withers pretty nicely. There's a tiny bit of a dip, but not a big deal. That you can probably make that disappear with the training, right? The more the horse lifts the withers, the more this will disappear. And even though the neck is not terribly long, it looks like there's enough space for the horse to flex the pole there. The transition from the back into the croup is pretty nice. Here in the picture, the hind legs are a little bit far behind. I don't know if it's just the way the horse was made to stand for the picture, or if he's always a little bit like that. Yeah. So if that's sort of the confirmation that the hind legs are a little bit back like this, then yeah, you'll have to do lots of engaging the hind legs and flexing them. So combinations of shoulder 4, voltes, counter shoulder 4, volted the other way or volted to the inside. Either way works. But yeah, all in all, nice confirmation. And muscling looks smooth and round. So doesn't have any big holes in the muscling, so to speak. So now let me check again in YouTube also, in case there are more questions. Oh, Liz says, made it to the end of the live session. Yay, learning so much. Thank you for doing this as always. Oh, you're welcome. We're not quite at the end yet. Well, 15 more minutes.
Maybe they wanted to end.
I know, probably.
They're tired.
I know. So let me here. Ilka Chapman Roth says, this is my 7-year-old Andalusian mare. Let me read it first because I'm not sure that it'll show up once I share the screen. She says she's always found working over her back very difficult. She has regular osteo treatments and we found some issues over her back. She has the strange looking divot muscle atrophy over her rump as seen in the image. We think she may have an old injury. Have owned her for 3 years and she's slowly getting stronger. Maybe the divot will meet up during this course. Let's see. Yeah. Let's share the screen. And let me just look through the pictures. Look what we have. It doesn't show up very well. Yeah, could have been. It's hard to see what it is from here. Could be an injury, I suppose. And let me just take a look. Yeah, it's interesting how different the horse looks in the different pictures. Right here, she actually looks pretty good. So here the conformation looks fairly harmonious. Could be that there's a bit of a tightness in the poll. I mean, she's looking at something, right? The ears are pointed forward, so there's probably a certain amount of tension in the neck at the moment because she's focused on something over there. But yeah, if you look at the depth of the neck here at the poll and at the withers, so it's at the withers, it's not much deeper than at the poll, you know, so the upper line and the underline of the neck are not totally parallel, but there's not a huge angle between them, which can then reduce the suppleness in the poll sometimes, but with some lateral flexions, you can also improve that. But I like the transition of the back into the croup here. Hind legs are, you know, vertical. So here in this picture, she actually looks pretty good. Now here it looks very different, right? And in this angle looks also like it's taken maybe with a wide angle lens or something. Here the back looks pretty concave and the loin looks atrophied a little bit. Very different from this picture. Right here it doesn't look atrophied. I don't know, maybe it's not the same day. Maybe this was taken a few months earlier or so. Yeah, here is not a lot of muscling there. Spine looks like it's sticking out just a little bit. But yeah, like I said, at this angle looks very different. Here with the croup, with the dip that I can't really see exactly what it is. So I don't know. And here moving, it's hard to say anything in that that moment. I mean, here she's also probably excited a little bit, looking, you know, at something. Yeah, I mean, conformation doesn't look bad actually. So the transition from the loin to the croup doesn't look so bad, and the neck actually has a nice shape. So I don't know why the horse has a hard time, you know, using her back. I mean, there could be different reasons, right? It doesn't have to be conformation. It could also be that I don't know, the horse is nervous, tense, you know, distractible, so they have a hard time relaxing. Then that would, you know, would make it difficult for the horse to use her back properly. And so Ilka says the horse has regular osteo treatments, and there were some issues in the back. And it's a chicken and egg kind of question. Sometimes, maybe she has a hard time using her back because there are issues in the back, right? Physical issues, but it could also be that the issues in the back are from something else, right? That developed as a result of something else. Would also be interesting to find out how well balanced she is, how straight or how crooked she is, how good her body awareness is, how well connected the feet are to the ground, because these would all be factors that would make it difficult for her to access the back. Like if she doesn't have a good sense of her feet, where they are and what they're doing, then she won't be able to lift the back very well, right? If you have a good connection through all 4 feet to the ground, then the horses tend to lift the back better and develop the top line better. If a horse is very crooked, for example, then they will also not develop the top line well, because then they're unable to use themselves well. So these are all factors that can play a role. And so we're back. I think my SIM card ran out, but I switched now to the slower Wi-Fi.
We can switch the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just have 5 more minutes, and then.
Or just end it.
Yeah, we can
Just end it.
end it. I guess. Yeah.
Reception will be so bad that it'll be unwatchable.
Yeah. So it always takes a few minutes to change the SIM card. So we're pretty close to the end. So we'll do it again tomorrow. And yeah, sorry that I didn't get to everybody's pictures, but there were so many of them. And tomorrow we can do more. Tomorrow you'll see a video of riders' mistakes that will also have a negative impact on how the horse uses his top line.
Maybe in tomorrow's Q&A you could get to more of the pictures.
Yeah, well, I did a lot of pictures today.
I know, but ones that you didn't get to.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll try to
maybe you could try.
Continue with the.
There'll be questions about the rider mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll continue with the pictures too, and answer questions about the rider mistakes. So Julie says, thank you so much for such an informative evening. Fascinating. I'm hoping that it's useful and that you get some beneficial information. And just really quickly read a couple more comments. So Chris Stanko says, my Lusitano gelding is stick through the throat latch, and I'm thinking it's because he always wanted to curl up behind the bit whenever we touch the reins. He's much more accepting of the bit now, and is 70% of the time is more open in the throat latch instead of closed. He has learned to stretch, has become very relaxed in his work. He had said lateral flexion may help the muscling of the upper neck. Will it help thin out the throat latch? Yeah, it changes the muscles around the throat latch. So if the horse is very thick there and not very flexible, some horses will then try to compensate by flexing too much at the base of the neck, especially if the neck is long. A lot of them will then overflex laterally, and some of them curl up. So if the neck is long enough, they can curl up and bite the chest, so to speak. And it's a way of protecting the paw from you accessing it, and the hind legs too. If the base of the neck flexes too much, you have no more access to the hip joints or to the pole. So if you do flexions on the ground, you can even lift the head and neck up and then see if you can move the skull a little left and right without the horse flexing at the base. And yeah, then gradually, the pole will get looser, and then if you do this regularly, the muscles around the pole will change shape. You see more definition around the jaw, the pole, the neck muscles, and so on. And then the base of the neck can also become more stable. Yeah. So then, oh yeah, Beverly Sattler here said, when double lunging, I imagine it's easier to keep the horse out on a larger circle because of the outside rein. Also, does it tend to stop them from doing the occasional tear around because of the bit in the mouth? If not, how do you slow down a bit of an excited moment without pulling? Yeah, when you have the two reins, you can make a connection from the outside rein to the outside hind leg. That helps with preventing the horse from falling in. You can often stop the horse more easily. They can half hold with the outside rein, flex with the inside, or you can flex to the outside. So it's often easier to prevent the horse from taking off. It's easier with a double lunge line than with a single lunge line. Yeah, then Sharon Francis, thank you so much for all the reviews of videos. It really does improve your eye with someone talking through what they see. Good, I'm glad it helps. And Tracy Cox says it's helpful to see all the pictures of different horses and hear your comments, helping me to educate my eye and understand so much more about conformation and its effects on top line and training strategies. Awesome. Yeah, that's the goal, right? That you'll get some more ideas of what to do, or that you see a little bit how training and conformation and muscle development are all connected with each other, right? So then when you see a new horse, you look at the conformation, muscle development, you get an idea of what to expect, and by doing these exercises, you develop your intuition too. Then you see a horse and you get a feel or a sense of what might be difficult, what might be easy, what might help, and then speeds up the training process in the sense that you maybe find the right thing to do sooner and you don't have to search around as long. Yeah, very good. Let me check one more time on the YouTube, but there's nothing new. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow maybe. And oops, there are more. Francis here says, my horse did that stand with his hind leg under him, straightness work, and work in hand straightened him. Oh yeah, good to know. Yeah, good. Great. Sherry says, thank you for taking the time to share your knowledge. It's very much appreciated. Oh, you're welcome. Christina says, another interesting lesson. Thank you for that. Have a nice rest of the day. Yeah, our day is over. Time to go to bed soon. So yeah, thanks a lot. And maybe we'll see you tomorrow. That'd be great. Thank you.